Hello, Tom of All Trades here with Silo House Productions. We're going to be shooting this is the first in a video series that we're going to be shooting on alternative building construction methods. We'll focus on the construction of a gabion wall and a gabion basket. Gabion is Italian for big cage, and you might see these similar structures along the highway. They typically used larger baskets are used for retaining walls and to hold back earth. We came about this technique because we purchased this farm and had a lot of old buildings of masonry construction, old broken brick and cement footers that we needed to deal with. So these baskets can be filled with a variety of things, anything from rocks to chunks of concrete. We used a lot of this Natco building tile in several baskets, and we built kind of a wall that looks nice and is fairly inexpensive to build. And we're going to talk today about how to construct one of these baskets using simple and readily available materials. So let's go over to the workshop and get started on making a basket. Okay, we're back in the shop. We're going to go over some of the basic tools that you need for this project. If you choose to use them, some gloves are kind of handy because the material can be sharp when you cut it. Also, safety glasses are nice because the wire has a memory and it tends to kind of spring back, and that could, so safety glasses are advisable. The main thing is a tape measure. You could get away without using a tape measure because the welded wire we're using, the square is measured 2 by 4 inches. So that 2 by 4 inch square will sort of determine the shape that you're going to come out with. And the 2 by 4 inch, you can just simply count the squares and come up. So you don't really necessarily need a measuring tape, but it's handy. A thing you will need is a fairly stout pair of these side docking wire cutters. These work really well because the angle of the cut enables you to get very close to the wire that you want to snip, and then you don't have that little sprue that's sticking out of the way and doesn't look as nice. You could get away also with some, like a combination wire cutter and pliers. Sometimes it's a little harder to get in the correct angle with these. With that, you also need, or it's suggested to have a set of hog ring pliers. The hog ring pliers get loaded with these little hog rings, and this tool is used to assemble the basket into its shape and kind of hold it temporarily before you wire it together. I like this. This is if you're building a lot of baskets. I've probably built 100 baskets, and I bought this along the way. It's available online. They're kind of a little finicky, so sometimes you may, both. I would start with this one first, and then if you find yourself in a big project, I'd go ahead and invest in the money in the automatic hog ring pliers. The material of choice that I've selected for the gabion baskets that I built is welded wire fencing with 2 by 4 inch squares. It's commonly available we have Tractor Supply around here. They sell it in different sizes. I'm using today a 72 inch wide by 100-foot roll. It's convenient to buy it in 100-foot rolls because if you're going to make a wall, you're going to need quite a few baskets, and that seems to be the most economical and easiest to handle. What I'm going to do is cut a 16 by 16 by 28 inch basket that will be integrated and will have a lid in the basket. I'm going to do that to start out, I'm going to cut a 16 by 16 inch square out of the corner. That will give me a front and then a side, and so I'll demonstrate that, and this is where the tape measure. What I was saying is you could just simply count these and get your dimension, but it's nice to have a tape measure to double check it. So this is where the wire cutters come in handy. I'm kind of cutting at a little bit of an angle, and I'm using this side, not that. If you use the inside, you'll get a little sprue or a little detent that sticks out, and it kind of gets in the way. So the way I cut this is just simply like that, slight angle, and just snip it off there. Just get it started. Once I have it started, I want the other 16 inches, so I'll measure down. This will end up being the corner of one bottom corner of my basket. So I like to mark that with my fingers so I don't lose track of it. And I'm not going to cut that corner. I'm just going to cut the other wires around it. And this is where it does generate some waste with the wire, but I favor generating some of the waste. This gives you a very strong basket because if you, especially if you tend to want to stack them in multiple tiers to get a wall of a reasonable height, you're going to want a basket that's very strong because these will hold quite a lot of material. So now I have a corner. For the length of the basket, I'm going to go 28 inches. So that's right to there. Kind of the same line. I'm following over and cut that. It's real easy to get confused because the wire tends to all look the same as you're cutting. Again. So what I'm going to do now is finish cutting this up, which is fairly repetitive. I'll end up with a cross-shaped piece that will include the front, the bottom, the sides, the back, and then the lid. With this, I could have gotten away with using a little bit narrower roll. I think, I'm wasting about a foot, so I could have gotten away with a 6-foot roll. I bought this, a 5-foot roll. I bought this 6-foot roll for a different purpose, and so there will be a little bit of waste today, but that's okay. So when I'm done cutting it out, I'll have this widened cross shape here. That gives me, this will be the front, the sides, and then the back and the top. You could, like I was saying, it's nice to have a flat surface, cement or gravel driveway to do this because it just helps keep the wire very straight. And as I said, we're using this 2x4 inch square welded wire fence, and we chose this because it's readily available and pretty easy to work with, and then when you wire these baskets in series together, it becomes a very strong wall. I did a lot of experimentation with cutting these out individually. It means that I have less waste of wire, but it ends up being not as strong as this general design. The other thing to realize is that the welds are fairly fragile, so they don't like to be bent a whole lot. And to make it a box, you need a pretty sharp bend. The welds are also stacked, so this wire is running on the inside. So when I go to assemble the basket, I'm going to actually bend it together into a box so that this wire right here is underneath this wire across here. That way, if one of those welds breaks, I still have a wire coming up that supports these interior wires. And like I was saying, you could do this down on the concrete floor or a driveway, but I have a metal table and I'll show you how I assemble it over at the table. So we'll take this over there. So the way I do it, I've made well over 100 of these baskets. So I've tried to bend it in different ways, and I came up, this is just how I do it to make the workflow easier. I also tried putting a board in here and using that as kind of a form, and it worked well, but it was just an additional step. So I don't do that anymore. So what I like to do is start with the front, and I'm going to bend it just to get it started. And you just want it to keep everything, kind of square. So once I do that, I'm unbend it, do the sides. Kind of awkward. At this phase is where you might want to wear gloves, because where you cut, it can be kind of sharp. Although with gloves, you sacrifice protection for some manual dexterity, so I'm not going to use gloves today. So you just want to make sure these are all pretty square. If the weld is going to break, it usually breaks on the side, because when I bend the sides, I'm actually pulling the weld away from the two wires apart. Okay, now that I've bent it roughly to shape, it's time to assemble it a little bit more. As I said, the wire has kind of a memory that wants to roll back up into a roll, so you're kind of fighting against that and trying to keep it square. This is where the other thing I should mention is I like to keep the box shaped square. You certainly could go, I wouldn't go, this is 16 inches, but you could go 20. I wouldn't go much above that, because the next step, when you fill it, you have to reach down in here, and if the box is very tall, it just makes it more inconvenient to do that. So what I'm going to do is just start at a corner. I like to start about one wire up from the bottom, and I use the hog ring tool to crimp the wires together. The hog rings don't need to be real tight, because it's going to be tightened up as you assemble the boxes in series. I'll switch over to this automatic hog ring tool. These are nice, but they can be kind of finicky. They tend to jam up a lot. Although it seems to be working well today. So I put a hog ring around each top and bottom, and then kind of in the middle. And that gives it its support, so you can work with it further and try to get it as square as possible. So I'm just working around, bottom, middle, top. I have it assembled into a box. I'm just going to try to get it a little squarer. Be careful on these corners, because that's where the weld will tend to break. But you see along the sides, these are kind of containing the wires going this way, which adds a lot of strength to the basket. I also, the top of it, I leave that open because you're going to fill it, and if I fold this down and then hog ring it, I'll just have to redo that. So I leave them open until the next step. So as you can see, that's a Gabion basket, a little bit of labor involved, but fairly inexpensive compared to buying them online. So once again, this is the first in a series of videos. I'm Tom of All Trades with Silo House Productions. Have a good day.